Have you ever made a snap judgment about someone and lived to regret it? In this story, a waitress named Belinda thinks she knows exactly who belongs in her restaurant and who doesn't. For 17 years, she's ruled her section of tables like a queen. She knows all the regulars. She knows who tips well and who doesn't. And she thinks she knows exactly what kind of people deserve her best service. But one Friday night, a well-dressed couple walks in and turns Belinda's world upside down. What happens next will change everything she thought she knew about herself, her job, and the power of second chances. Let's begin our story at Parkside Bistro, where Belinda Frost is starting what she thinks is just another regular shift. Belinda Frost tied her black apron around her waist and checked her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror. At 45, she still had the energy of someone 10 years younger, and she needed every bit of it for the dinner rush at Parkside Bistro. Another day, another dollar, she muttered, tucking a stray gray blonde hair back into her tight bun. 17 years. That's how long she'd worked these floors, memorized these menus, and served these tables. 17 years of watching Parkside. Bistro slowly changed from the crown jewel of Main Street to just another struggling restaurant in a neighborhood that wasn't what it used to be. Belinda pushed through the swinging door into the kitchen where Mateo, the head chef, was yelling orders to his line cooks. "Evening, Mateo," she called out. Mateo glanced up from the steak he was inspecting. "Hey, Belinda, ready for Friday night?" "Born ready," she replied, with the confident smile she'd perfected over the years. "What's the special tonight?" "Blackened. Salmon with mango salsa. It's going to sell out fast." Belinda nodded, making a mental note. The regulars in her section would want to know right away. Her section. Tables 12 through 19. The best tables in the house, not too close to the bathrooms. Or kitchen, with a nice view of the street. She'd earned that section through years of perfect service and generous tips. Out on the restaurant floor, Dennis, the manager, was adjusting table settings. At 32, Dennis was young enough to be her son, but Belinda had to admit he ran a tight ship. "Evening, Dennis," she said, straightening a napkin he'd missed. "Belinda, glad you're here. We're fully booked tonight. 2 big parties at 7:00. Not in my section, I hope," she said quickly. "Last time you put that birthday group in my area, they stayed for 3 hours and tipped 15%. Dennis sighed. "No, Zoe's handling the parties. But I need your best service tonight. Mr. Caldwell called to check in." Belinda raised an eyebrow. The owner hardly ever called anymore. Rumors were floating that he might sell the place, but Belinda dismissed them. Mr. Caldwell knew better than to sell the restaurant that had been in his family for generations. "When do I ever give less than my best?" she asked. The front door chimed, and the first customers of the evening walked in. A middle-aged couple, regulars who always ordered the same thing: Caesar salad, filet mignon, and a bottle of Merlot. "My regulars?" Belinda smiled. "Table 14, please, Dennis. They prefer it." By 6 o'clock, Belinda was in her rhythm. She moved between her tables with practiced ease, remembering who needed refills and who was ready for their check without being asked. This was her domain, and she ruled it effectively. Zoe, the newest waitress, rushed past with a tray full of drinks. "Slow down before you spill something," Belinda cautioned. "Sorry," Zoe called back. The girl was only 24 and still learning the ropes. Belinda found her enthusiasm exhausting, but the customers seemed to like her. "Can you cover table 16 for a minute while I take my break?" Zoe asked, setting down her empty tray. "That's in my section," Belinda replied. "I've got it." "Who seated them?" "Dennis did, just now." "Nice couple." Belinda glanced over at table 16, expecting to see the usual type of customer they got on Fridays: local business people or couples from the nearby suburbs. Instead, she froze. A black couple was being seated at her best table. They were well-dressed. The man in what looked like an expensive suit, and the woman in a stylish dress. But Belinda immediately stiffened. The neighborhood had been changing over the past 5 years. The old money customers who had kept Parkside Bistro alive were being replaced by newcomers. People who didn't understand the restaurant's history or traditions. People who didn't tip as well, according to Belinda. People like them. Dennis finished seating the couple and walked past Belinda on his way back to the host stand. "Table 16 needs their drink order," he said. Belinda didn't move. She watched as the man held the chair for his wife, as they smiled at each other, as they picked up the menus Dennis had given them. "Belinda, did you hear me?" Dennis asked. "I heard you," she said, her voice tight. "I just need to check on table 19 first. They've been waiting for their dessert." "Table 16 has been waiting longer," Dennis pointed out. Belinda pretended not to hear him as she turned away. She had a system, and she wasn't going to change it for anyone, especially not for those people who'd been seated in her section without her approval. They could wait. Belinda busied herself with other tables. She checked on the elderly man at table 15 who always wanted extra butter for his bread. She brought fresh drinks to the young couple at table 18 who hadn't even asked for refills yet. She even helped Zoe deliver food to a table that wasn't in her section. Anything to avoid table 16, Everett Coleman glanced at his watch and then at his wife, Maya. "It's been 10 minutes since we sat down," he said quietly. Maya nodded, her dark eyes taking in the restaurant. She noticed how the waitress, the older one with the tight bun, kept looking their way but never approaching. "I see what's happening," she whispered. "Let's give it a few more minutes," Everett suggested, always the optimistic one. "Maybe she's just busy." Maya raised an eyebrow and tilted her head toward other tables that had been seated after them. Those customers already had drinks and bread baskets. She didn't need to say anything else. Everett sighed. They had been through this before, too many times to count. Even dressed in his best suit, and her in a designer dress, some people only saw one thing. "Excuse me," Maya tried to wave at the waitress as she passed by with a water pitcher, refilling glasses at a nearby table. Belinda pretended not to see her. "Did table 16 get their drinks yet?" Dennis asked, stopping by the service station where Belinda was arranging dessert plates. "I haven't had time," Belinda answered, not meeting his eyes. "I'm handling things in the proper order." Dennis frowned. "They've been waiting 15 minutes now, Belinda. Take their drink order next." "I have a system, Dennis," she replied coldly. "Table 19 needs their check. Table 15 wants more bread, and table 18 is ready to order. I'll get to the others when I can." Dennis looked over at table 16, where Everett was now trying to catch someone's eye, and then back at Belinda. A flash of understanding crossed his face. "Is there a problem with table 16?" he asked carefully. "No problem," Belinda said, her voice tight. "Like I said, I have a system." Zoe approached, carrying a tray of empty dishes. "I can take their order if you want, Belinda. They look like they've been waiting a while." "No," Belinda snapped. "They're in my section. My tips." "Then go serve them," Dennis ordered, his voice firmer now. Belinda huffed, but grabbed 2 water glasses and slowly made her way to table 16. She placed the waters down without a word, not making eye contact with either Everett or Maya. "Good evening," Everett said with a warm smile. "We were beginning to think we were invisible." Belinda didn't return the smile. "What can I get you?" she asked flatly. Maya studied Belinda's face before speaking. "We'd like to know tonight's specials, please," It's on the board by the entrance, Belinda replied, pointing toward the front of the restaurant. Everett and Maya exchanged glances. The board was too far away to read from their table. "Perhaps you could tell us?" Everett suggested, his voice still pleasant despite the growing tension. Belinda sighed loudly. "Blackened salmon with mango salsa. Do you need more time? Or are you ready to order?" "We haven't even had a chance to look at the menu," Maya said calmly. "We've been waiting for service for nearly 20 minutes. "We're very busy tonight," Belinda replied, though the restaurant was only half full. "I noticed other tables that were seated after us have already received their drinks and bread," Maya observed. "Is there a reason we haven't?" Belinda's lips tightened. "Like I said, we're busy. Some of those are my regular customers. I know what they want before they sit down." "And what about people like us?" Maya asked, her voice level but her eyes intense. "What do you think we want?" The question hung in the air. Belinda shifted uncomfortably. "I'll get you some bread," she muttered before walking away quickly. "It's happening again," Maya said to Everett once Belinda was out of earshot. "Just like at that place in Chicago last year." Everett reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I know, but we're not leaving this time." Maya nodded, determination settling across her features. This was exactly why they were here, after all. 10 minutes passed before Belinda returned, dropping a bread basket on their table without a word. She didn't offer pepper or parmesan like she had for the table next. "To them!" "We're ready to order now," Everett said, closing his menu. "What do you want?" Belinda asked, not bothering to write anything down. "I'd like the filet mignon, medium rare," Everett said. Belinda snorted slightly. "That's our most expensive dish." Maya's eyes flashed. "Is there a problem with that?" "No, problem," Belinda replied in a tone that suggested otherwise. "And for you?" "Before I order," Maya said, "I'd like to speak to the manager." "There's no need for that," Belinda said quickly. "I can handle whatever you need." "I'm sure you think you can," Maya replied coolly. "But I'd still like to speak with the manager." Belinda's face flushed. Other diners were beginning to notice the tension. A woman at the next table was frowning in their direction, and a man by the window had his phone out, possibly recording. "Fine," Belinda said through clenched teeth. "I'll get Dennis." As she walked away, Everett leaned toward Maya. "Are you sure about this? We could just leave." Maya shook her head firmly. "No, Everett, not this time. This is exactly why we're here." Belinda returned with Dennis, who looked concerned as he approached their table. "Is there a problem?" he asked, shooting a warning glance at Belinda. "Yes," Everett said calmly. "I believe there is." Dennis pulled out an empty chair and sat down. "I'm Dennis Hargrove, the manager. Please tell me what's going on." Belinda stood awkwardly to the side, arms crossed over her chest. "My wife and I have been seated for nearly half an hour," Everett explained. "During that time, we've watched as tables seated after us received prompt service, while we were ignored." Dennis winced. "I'm so sorry about that. We pride ourselves on excellent service for all our guests." "All your guests?" Maya asked, her voice carrying just enough to draw attention from nearby tables. "Are you sure about that?" Belinda jumped in. "I told you I was busy with my regular customers. It's not my fault you're being so sensitive." Dennis's eyes widened. "Belinda, that's enough." He turned back to the Colemans. "Please accept my sincere apologies. This is not how we treat customers at Parkside Bistro." Maya leaned forward slightly. "But it is how we've been treated tonight. The question is why." Earlier that morning, Maya and Everett had stood outside Parkside Bistro, studying the building. "Are you sure this is the right place?" Maya had asked, squeezing her husband's hand. Everett nodded. The financials look solid despite the recent downturn. Great location, strong history, just needs new energy and direction. Maya had frowned. I've heard things about this place, Everett, about how they treat people who look like us. That's partly why we're here, isn't it? He had replied. To change things. Now, sitting at table 16 with all eyes on them, Maya remembered that conversation. This was exactly why they had come. Dennis glared at Belinda. Would you like to explain yourself? Belinda shifted uncomfortably. There's nothing to explain. We're busy tonight, and I was handling tables in order of priority. Priority? Maya repeated. What exactly determines priority in your system? Regular customers come first, Belinda said defensively. People who I know will order properly and tip well. And how did you determine that we wouldn't order properly or tip well? Everett asked. You hadn't spoken a word to us until 10 minutes ago. Belinda's face flushed. In her mind, she had good reasons. People like them didn't understand fine dining. They asked too many questions. They ordered the cheapest items and complained the most. They never tipped properly. That's what she'd always believed anyway. But saying any of this out loud now, with Dennis staring at her and at least 3 customers pointing their phones in her direction, would be career suicide. I didn't mean anything by it, she mumbled. Young woman at the next table spoke up. I've been recording this whole exchange. She's been discriminating against them since they sat down. No, I haven't, Belinda protested. I was just busy. You served us immediately, an older man called from 2 tables away. And we came in after they did. The restaurant had gone quiet. Every customer was watching the scene unfold. Mateo had even emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron as he assessed the situation. Dennis stood up, his face pale. Belinda, please take your break now. I don't need a break, she insisted. I need to serve my section. That wasn't a suggestion, Dennis said firmly. Take your break. Now. Belinda looked around at the staring customers, at Dennis's angry face, at Everett and Maya's calm but determined expressions. For the first time in 17 years, she felt her position at Parkside Bistro threatened. Fine, she snapped, untying her apron. But Mr. Caldwell will hear about this. I've worked here longer than anyone. As Belinda stormed toward the back of the restaurant, Dennis turned back to the Colemans. I cannot apologize enough for this situation. Your meal tonight is completely on the house. Maya shook her head. We don't want a free meal, Mr. Hargrove. We want equal treatment. Of course, Dennis nodded quickly. I'll personally take care of you for the rest of your visit. Anything you want, please just ask. As Dennis hurried off to get their drinks, Everett leaned closer to Maya. This is worse than we thought. Or exactly what we expected, Maya replied. She pulled out her phone and made a quick note. The staff seems divided. The younger waitress, Zoe, I think, wanted to help us. The chef came out to see what was happening. But that Belinda… 17 years of serving here, Everett mused. That's a long time to develop bad habits. And to influence the culture, Maya added. Did you notice how the older customers didn't seem surprised by her behavior? I bet this isn't the first time. Dennis returned with 2 glasses of champagne. On the house, he insisted. Please, let me know what else I can do to make this right. Maya accepted the glass. Tell us about Parkside Bistro, Mr. Hargrove. How long have you worked here? About 3 years, Dennis replied. It's a wonderful restaurant with a rich history in this community. And how long has Mr. Caldwell owned it? Everett asked casually. The Caldwell family has owned Parkside for nearly 50 years, Dennis said proudly. Though between us, Mr. Caldwell hasn't been around much lately. Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen. I'm sorry. I need to... Take this. It's important. As she stepped away from the table, Belinda watched from near the kitchen door, still seething. She wasn't close enough to hear the full conversation, but she caught fragments as Maya passed by. Yes, we're here now. Worse than we thought. No, we're still interested. Need to see the books again. Tell them we'll make the offer tomorrow. Belinda frowned. What offer? Who was this woman? She watched as Maya returned to the table, where Dennis was chatting amiably with Everett. They looked far too comfortable for customers who had just made a scene. Something wasn't right, and Belinda was determined to find out what. Meanwhile, Everett and Maya sat quietly at their table, finally enjoying the meal that Dennis had personally rushed from the kitchen. The other diners had mostly returned to their own conversations, though occasional glances still came their way. What did Jasmine say? Everett asked in a low voice, cutting into his perfectly cooked steak. The investors are all in, Maya replied. They were worried when I told them about the incident, but I assured them it's exactly why this place needs us. Everett nodded, his eyes taking in the restaurant's faded elegance. The once grand chandelier with 3 bulbs now burnt out, the small crack running along one wall, the outdated menus with prices crossed out and rewritten by hand. It reminds me of our first place, he said, with a hint of nostalgia. Maya smiled. Except, the Haven never had a Belinda. No, we just had that health inspector who suddenly needed 3 visits when he found out who owned the restaurant. They shared a knowing look, both remembering the struggle of opening their first restaurant 5 years ago. Despite stellar credentials, Maya with her business degree and experience managing high-end restaurants, Everett with his culinary training from one of the best schools in the country, doors kept mysteriously closing. Remember that bank manager in Atlanta? Maya said, shaking her head. The one who told us the loan was approved, then suddenly it wasn't? Or the landlord in Chicago who rented the space to someone else after we'd already signed the preliminary paperwork? Everett added. Their first restaurant, the Haven, had succeeded despite it all. Then came their second location, and now they owned a small but thriving collection of 4 restaurants across the Midwest. Each one rescued from decline, each one transformed into a community gathering place where everyone was welcome. Do you think we can change this place? Maya asked, glancing toward the kitchen where Belinda had disappeared. We've faced worse, Everett reminded her. Remember Mrs. Porter? Maya laughed. How could I forget? I don't want those people touching my food, she mimicked in a snooty voice. Now she hosts her church group at our place every Sunday after service. Everett reached across the table and squeezed her hand. People can change, Maya. Not all of them, but some. Enough to make it worth trying. Their conversation paused as Belinda emerged from the kitchen and approached their table. Her smile was stiff and didn't reach her eyes. Is everything to your satisfaction? She asked mechanically. The food is excellent, Everett replied. Please, give our compliments to the chef. Belinda nodded curtly. Dennis had insisted she return and provide proper service, threatening to call Mr. Caldwell if she didn't. Now she was doing the bare minimum required to keep her job. Can I get you anything else? She asked, avoiding eye contact. Actually, yes, Maya said. Tell us about Parkside Bistro. You mentioned you've worked here for 17 years? Belinda looked surprised at the question. That's right. Since before the neighborhood changed. Changed how? Everett asked innocently. Belinda's eyes narrowed slightly. Just changed. Different people moving in. Different businesses. Better or worse? Maya pressed. Different, Belinda repeated firmly. She was not going to be tricked into saying something that could be used against her. Will there be anything else? We'd like to see a dessert menu, please, Everett said. When Belinda left, Maya leaned forward. She's not going to make this easy. No, Everett agreed. But that doesn't change our plans. As they finished their meal, both thought back to their meeting with Mr. Caldwell the previous week. The aging owner had been candid about the restaurant's declining profits and his desire to sell before things got worse. He hadn't mentioned anything about his staff's potential resistance to new ownership, especially ownership that looked like the Colemans. Maybe we should have introduced ourselves to the staff first, Everett suggested as they waited for their dessert. Maya shook her head. No, this was better. We got to see how the place really runs, how customers are really treated. Or some customers, anyway, Everett corrected. Maya's phone buzzed again. It's Jasmine with the final paperwork, she said, checking the message. We're all set for tomorrow morning. Belinda returned with their desserts, 2 slices of cheesecake that she practically dropped on the table. As she turned to leave, Maya called after her. Excuse me, Belinda? Could we get some coffee as well? Belinda stopped, her back stiffening. Regular or decaf? She asked without turning around. Regular for both of us, please, Everett replied, pleasantly. As Belinda walked away, Maya watched her thoughtfully. She'll be the biggest challenge. Or our biggest opportunity, Everett countered. Think about it. If we can change someone like her, imagine the message that sends. Maya nodded, slowly. You always see the best possibilities in people, don't you? It's why we make a good team, Everett smiled. You see the problems that need fixing, and I see how things could be better. They finished their dessert in comfortable silence, occasionally catching Belinda watching them from across the room. When they finally requested the check, which Dennis insisted on reducing by half despite their protests, Belinda brought it with barely concealed resentment. Thank you for your service tonight, Maya said, as she handed over her credit card. Belinda didn't respond, but as she processed the payment, she couldn't help noticing the generous tip they left, despite everything, and the business card Maya discreetly placed on the table before they departed. A business card for Coleman Restaurant Group. Belinda picked it up after they left, a cold feeling of dread washing over her as pieces began falling into place. Coleman Restaurant Group, the business call, the questions about the restaurant, the way they seemed to know exactly who Mr. Caldwell was. The next morning, Belinda had convinced herself she was overreacting. She tucked the business card into her purse, determined to forget about the whole unpleasant evening. But when she arrived for her Saturday lunch shift, the restaurant was buzzing with gossip. Did you hear? Zoe asked, as soon as Belinda walked through the door. Someone's buying Parkside. Belinda froze. What are you talking about? Dennis told us this morning, Mateo added, poking his head out from the kitchen. Mr. Caldwell called him last night, said the deal is almost final. That's ridiculous, Belinda scoffed, hanging up her coat. Mr. Caldwell would never sell this place. His family has owned it for 50 years. Zoe shrugged. Well, he's selling it now. Dennis said the new owners are coming in next week to meet everyone. Belinda's hands trembled slightly as she tied her apron. Did Dennis say who's buying it? Some restaurant group, Mateo replied. They own a bunch of places across the Midwest. Supposedly, they're really good at turning around struggling restaurants. Belinda thought again of the business card. Coleman Restaurant Group. It couldn't be them. It just couldn't. Parkside isn't struggling, she insisted. We've had a few slow months, that's all. Mateo and Zoe exchanged glances. Belinda, We've been struggling for over a year, Zoe said gently. Haven't you noticed how many shifts have been cut? How the supply orders keep getting smaller? That's just good business, Belinda replied firmly. Cutting waste, being efficient. It's more than that, Mateo said. Mr. Caldwell hasn't paid for new kitchen equipment in 3 years. Half my burners don't work right. We're barely keeping up. Belinda shook her head stubbornly. This place has survived for 50 years. It'll survive another 50. Not without changes, Dennis said, joining the conversation as he walked in from the office. And speaking of changes, we need to talk about last night, Belinda. The others quickly made themselves busy, leaving Belinda alone with Dennis. I already apologized, she said defensively. No, you didn't, Dennis replied. And that's part of the problem. Do you have any idea how bad that looked? A customer recorded the whole thing and posted it online. Belinda's stomach dropped. Posted it where? Everywhere, Dennis sighed. It's got thousands of views already. People are calling the restaurant a racist establishment. That's not fair, Belinda protested. One misunderstanding and suddenly, the whole place is racist? It wasn't a misunderstanding, Dennis said firmly. You refused to serve customers because of how they looked. Don't deny it. Belinda's face flushed. I've been here 17 years, Dennis. You can't talk to me like this. I'm the manager, and yes, I can, he replied, especially when your behavior threatens the business, especially now, with new owners coming in. A chill ran through Belinda. Do you know who's buying the place? Dennis nodded. Some group called Coleman. They've already reviewed all our employment records. Belinda clutched the edge of a nearby table. All the records? Everything. Performance reviews, customer complaints, seniority. Dennis gave her a pointed look. Years of service won't matter if there are other issues, Belinda. Are you saying my job is in danger? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm saying everyone's job is in danger when ownership changes, Dennis replied, but some of us more than others. As the lunch shift began, Belinda moved mechanically through her duties. Her mind raced with worries about the video, about the new owners, about her future. She'd raised 2 children on this job after her husband left, put them through community college, paid off her small house. At 45, with only a high school education, where would she go if she lost this job? Mr. Caldwell is coming in this afternoon, Dennis announced during the mid-shift break. He wants to talk to all of us. About the sale? Zoe asked. Dennis nodded. And to introduce the new owners. They'll be with him. Belinda felt the blood drain from her face as she finally accepted what she'd been denying all morning. The Colemans were buying Parkside Bistro, and she had refused to serve them. The realization hit Belinda like a physical blow. She retreated to the staff bathroom, locking herself in a stall until she could breathe normally again. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not after 17 years of loyal service. When she finally emerged, the lunch rush was over, and the staff was preparing for the moment Mr. Caldwell would arrive. Zoe was straightening tablecloths while Mateo polished glasses that were already clean. Even Dennis seemed nervous, checking his phone every few minutes. Everyone, listen up, Dennis called out at 3:30. Mr. Caldwell will be here in 15 minutes with the new owners. I want the dining room spotless. Belinda, make sure all the salt and pepper shakers are full. Belinda nodded, grateful for a task to keep her hands busy. Her mind raced, trying to come up with explanations, excuses, anything that might save her job. What are you going to say to them? Zoe whispered, as they worked side by side. To who? Belinda asked, pretending not to understand. Zoe rolled her eyes. The couple from last night. The ones in the video. The ones buying our restaurant." "We don't know for sure it's them," Belinda insisted weakly. "Coleman Restaurant Group. Mr. and Mrs. Coleman. Come on, Belinda." Before Belinda could respond, the front door opened. Mr. Caldwell walked in, looking older and more tired than Belinda remembered. It had been months since he'd last visited the restaurant. His once black hair was now completely gray, and his normally crisp suit hung loosely on his frame, and behind him walked Everett and Maya Coleman. Belinda's hands froze on the salt shaker she was filling. Maya's eyes found hers immediately, but her expression revealed nothing. "Everyone, gather round," Mr. Caldwell called out. "I have an important announcement to make." The staff formed a semicircle: Mateo and his 2 line cooks, Zoe and the other part-time waitress, Dennis, the busboy, and Belinda, standing slightly apart from the others. "As some of you may have heard, I've made the difficult decision to sell Parkside Bistro," Mr. Caldwell began. "This restaurant has been in my family for generations, but it's time for new energy and new ideas." He gestured to the Colemans. "I'm pleased to introduce you to Everett and Maya Coleman of Coleman Restaurant Group. They'll be taking over ownership starting next Monday." Maya stepped forward, her elegant appearance just as striking as it had been the night before. "We're excited to join the Parkside family," she said warmly. "We've admired this restaurant for some time and believe it has incredible potential." Everett nodded beside her. "Our goal is to honor Parkside's legacy while bringing fresh perspectives. We've successfully revitalized 4 other historic restaurants across the Midwest, and we're looking forward to working with all of you." Sadaritiun noticed how carefully he said, "all of you," his eyes sweeping across the staff without lingering on her. "Will there be changes to the staff?" Dennis asked, voicing the question everyone was thinking. "We plan to retain the current team," Maya replied. "We believe in building on existing talent. There will be some changes to the menu and decor, but the heart of Parkside is its people." Belinda felt a wave of relief wash over her. Maybe they wouldn't fire her after all. Maybe they hadn't recognized her from last night. Maybe the dim lighting had hidden her face. "Any other questions?" Mr. Caldwell asked. Mateo raised his hand. "Will we be getting new kitchen equipment?" Everett smiled. "Absolutely. We've already ordered new stoves and refrigeration units. They'll be installed next week during our 3-day renovation period," the staff murmured excitedly. Mr. Caldwell had been promising new equipment for years. "What about the menu?" one of the line cooks asked. "We'll keep many of the classics that Parkside is known for," Everett explained. "But we'll also introduce some new dishes that reflect a wider range of culinary traditions. My background is in fusion cuisine, bringing together different cultural influences." As the questions continued, Belinda stood silently, hoping to blend into the background, but she could feel Maya's eyes occasionally drifting her way. "One last thing," Maya said when the questions died down. "We noticed the online review situation." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the viral video from last night. "We want to assure you that we're addressing it," Maya continued. "We believe in learning from mistakes rather than dwelling on them. We've already reached out to community leaders to discuss how Parkside can better serve all members of this neighborhood." Her gaze finally settled directly on Belinda. "We believe people can change when given the right opportunity and motivation." The message couldn't have been clearer. They knew exactly who she was. They remembered exactly what she had done. And, somehow, inexplicably, they weren't firing her on the spot. Mr. Caldwell clapped his hands together. "Well, that's all for now. The Colemans will be around this evening to observe operations. Please, make them welcome." As the staff dispersed, Belinda remained frozen in place. She watched as Mr. Caldwell led the Colemans toward the kitchen for a tour. Just before they disappeared through the swinging doors, Maya glanced back over her shoulder and caught Belinda's eye. There was no anger in her look, no triumph or smugness, just a calm assessment that made Belinda more uncomfortable than if she'd been openly hostile. These people now owned Parkside Bistro. They owned her job, her livelihood, her future, and they knew exactly what she thought of them. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Belinda. She went through the motions of her job, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks. But her mind was elsewhere, spinning with worry about her future. "They seem nice," Zoe commented as they restocked napkins together. "The Colemans, I mean," Belinda grunted noncommittally. "I looked them up online during my break," Zoe continued, undeterred by Belinda's lack of enthusiasm. "Their other restaurants are amazing. They've won all kinds of awards for their food and their workplace culture." "Good for them," Belinda muttered. "And get this, they have this program where they hire people who've had trouble finding jobs. Ex-cons, people who've been homeless, immigrants who are still learning English. They train them and give them a chance." Belinda paused. "Why are you telling me this?" Zoe looked at her directly. "Because maybe they'll give second chances to people who already work here too." The implication hung in the air between them. Belinda turned away, unable to meet the younger woman's eyes. Throughout the dinner service, the Colemans sat at a corner table, observing. They ordered different dishes, made notes, and occasionally spoke with Dennis or Mateo. They didn't approach Belinda, and she made sure to stay as far from their table as possible. When her shift ended at 10:04 p.m., Belinda hurried to gather her things, hoping to leave before the Colemans could corner her. But as she headed for the door, Dennis called. Her name, "Belinda, wait. The Colemans want to meet with all senior staff before they leave." Her heart sank. "Now?" "Yes, now." In Mr. Caldwell's office. With dragging feet, Belinda followed Dennis to the small office at the back of the restaurant. Mateo was already there, looking nervous but excited as he chatted with Everett about new menu possibilities. Maya smiled as Belinda entered. "Thank you for joining us. Please, have a seat." Belinda perched on the edge of a chair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "We wanted to share some of our immediate plans," Maya began. "The restaurant will close Monday through Wednesday next week for initial renovations. We'll use that time to deep clean, install the new kitchen equipment, and make some cosmetic updates to the dining room." "What about staff?" Belinda finally asked, the question bursting from her like water through a broken dam. "As we mentioned earlier, we plan to retain the current team," Everett replied, "though some roles may evolve as we implement our new approach." "Evolve how?" Belinda pressed. Maya leaned forward slightly. "We believe in creating opportunities for growth. Some staff members may take on new responsibilities or leadership roles. Others might find they prefer different positions within the restaurant." It sounded like management speak for demotions and reassignments. Belinda's stomach churned with anxiety. "Will we be required to reapply for our jobs?" Mateo asked. "No," Everett assured him. "Your positions are secure, but we will be holding individual meetings with each of you over the next week to discuss your experience, your ideas, and your goals." The meeting continued for another 15 minutes, with the Colemans outlining changes to the menu, the wine list, and the restaurant's marketing strategy. They thanked everyone for their time and dismissed them. Everyone except Belinda. "Could you stay for a moment?" Maya asked as the others filed out. Alone with the Colemans, Belinda felt 17 years of confidence evaporate. These people could end her career with a word. "We'd like to schedule your individual meeting for tomorrow afternoon," Maya said. "Is 3 o'clock convenient?" Belinda nodded mutely. "Good," Everett smiled. "We have a lot to discuss." That night, for the first time in years, Belinda couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in her bed, memories flooding through her mind. She remembered being a young single mother, desperate for work after her husband left. Mr. Caldwell had taken a chance on her, even though she had no experience in fine dining. She'd worked hard, learned everything she could, and eventually became his most reliable employee. Her small house, paid off just last year, had been possible because of Parkside Bistro. Her children's education, their chances in life, all of it had come from this job. And now it was all in jeopardy, because she'd refused to serve two people based on nothing but the color of their skin. Belinda had never thought of herself as racist. She had black neighbors she greeted pleasantly. She'd worked alongside black kitchen staff over the years without incident, but she had to admit, if only to herself in the darkness of her bedroom, that she treated black customers differently. She expected less from them, assumed the worst about their manners and their tipping. Why? She couldn't even explain it to herself. By morning, Belinda had made a decision. She would resign before the Colemans could fire her. It would be humiliating, but at least she could leave on her own terms. She arrived at Parkside early, intending to leave her resignation letter on Mr. Caldwell's desk, now the Colemans' desk. But as she stood in the empty restaurant, looking around at the place that had been her second home for 17 years, she felt a wave of grief so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. Before she could place the envelope on the desk, Maya Coleman stepped out of the office. "Belinda," she said, surprised. "You're early." "I wanted to drop this off," Belinda said, holding out the envelope with trembling fingers. Maya looked at it, but didn't take it. "Before you give me that, I'd like to talk with you. Just the two of us." Belinda clutched the envelope tighter, as if it might shield her from whatever was coming. "I've made up my mind." "Have you?" Maya asked softly. "Please, just give me 15 minutes. Something in her tone, not commanding, but gently insistent, made Belinda hesitate. Finally, she nodded and followed Maya into the office. The small room had already changed. The dusty golf trophies that had cluttered Mr. Caldwell's shelves were gone, replaced by framed photographs of restaurants, presumably the Colemans' other locations. A laptop sat open on the desk, surrounded by neatly arranged folders. "Have a seat," Maya gestured to a chair as she closed the door. Belinda sat stiffly, the resignation letter still gripped in her hand. She waited for Maya to sit behind the desk, to take the position of power, but instead, the woman pulled another chair close and sat facing her directly. "I know what's in that envelope," Maya said, "and I understand why you wrote it." "Do you?" Belinda asked, a hint of defiance creeping into her voice. "You're afraid we're going to fire you because of what happened Friday night, aren't you?" Maya folded her hands in her lap. "Everett and I have been in the restaurant business for years. We've seen just about everything. What happened with you wasn't unique, Belinda. Sad, but not unique." Belinda stared at her, unsure how to respond. "I've reviewed your employment file," Maya continued. 17 years, almost perfect attendance, regular customers who specifically request your section. You're good at your job. "Then why did you refuse to serve us?" Maya finished. "The question. That's what I'd like to understand." The directness took Belinda by surprise. She'd expected accusations, not questions. "I don't know," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think you do," Maya said, not unkindly. "Sometimes we carry ideas we don't even realize we have. Sometimes they're passed down to us. Sometimes we pick them up along the way. Belinda looked down at her hands. I'm not racist. That word makes people defensive, Maya nodded. Let's not worry about labels. Let's talk about actions and choices. For the next several minutes, Maya asked questions. Not accusatory ones, but curious ones. When had Belinda started working at Parkside? What was the neighborhood like then? How had it changed? What did she value most about her job? Belinda found herself answering hesitantly at first, then more freely. She spoke about the pride she took in knowing her regular customers' preferences, about the satisfaction of a busy night when everything ran smoothly. You care about this place, Maya observed. It's been my life, Belinda admitted, which is why you feel threatened by change. Belinda didn't deny it. The door opened suddenly, and Everett stepped in. Sorry to interrupt. The contractor is here. To measure for the new bar. Maya nodded. We'll be done soon. After Everett left, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Belinda sensed they were getting to the real purpose of this conversation. Everett and I opened our first restaurant in Atlanta 5 years ago, Maya said. We were turned down by 12 banks before we got funding. We had the experience, the business plan, everything, but we kept hearing no. Because you're black, Belinda said quietly. Yes. We faced discrimination at every turn. Still do, sometimes. Maya leaned forward. So when we experienced it here, at a restaurant we were planning to buy, it felt very familiar. Belinda flinched. I didn't know who you were? Would it have mattered if you had? The question hung in the air between them. Maya continued. When we buy struggling restaurants, we look for potential. Not just in the building or the location, but in the people. The staff is the heart of any restaurant. She paused, studying Belinda's face. After what happened, most owners would fire you immediately. It would be the easy decision. Belinda's grip tightened on the envelope. But Everett and I don't believe in easy decisions. We believe in something harder, the possibility of change. A knock at the door interrupted them again. Everett poked his head in. The health inspector is here for the pre-renovation assessment. I'll be right there, Maya told him. When they were alone again, Maya stood. I haven't accepted your resignation, Belinda, because I haven't decided whether to accept it yet. Belinda looked up in surprise. What do you mean? I mean, we're offering you a choice. Maya's voice was firm now. You can leave Parkside with 2 months severance pay, which is generous considering the circumstances. Or you can stay and be part of what we're building here. You'd still want me to work here? After what I did? If, and this is a significant if, you're willing to change, really change, not just go through the motions. Maya held up a folder. We're implementing a comprehensive diversity training program for all staff. If you stay, you'll not only participate, you'll help lead it. Belinda's mouth fell open. Lead it? Me? Sometimes the people who need to learn the most can also teach the most, once they've learned. Maya's eyes were intense. It won't be easy. You'll need to examine beliefs you've held your whole life. You'll need to have uncomfortable conversations. Like this one, you'll need to genuinely connect with people you've been avoiding. Why would you give me this chance? Belinda asked, genuinely puzzled. Because firing you would be simple. Helping you change would transform not just you, but potentially everyone around you. Maya placed a hand on the resignation letter, but didn't take it. The choice is yours. Take the day to think about it. We'll need your decision by tomorrow. Belinda sat still, the weight of the decision pressing on her. It would be easier to leave, to start over somewhere else. But at 45, with specialized experience in a restaurant that was changing hands, where would she go? And more importantly, would she just carry the same prejudices to a new workplace? Maya's voice softened. People aren't born knowing how to treat each other. We learn it, which means we can unlearn it and learn something better. As Maya stood to leave, Belinda found her voice. Wait. She looked down at the resignation letter in her hand, then slowly tore it in half. I don't need a day, she said quietly. I want to stay. I want to learn something better. Maya nodded, a small smile forming. The work begins tomorrow, then. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't friendship or easy acceptance. But it was an open door, a chance Belinda hadn't dared hope for. As Maya left to meet the health inspector, Belinda remained seated, the torn letter in her hands. For the first time in 2 days, she could breathe. The future was uncertain, but it existed. She had a chance to be better than she'd been, not just to save her job, but to become someone different than she'd been yesterday. The choice she'd just made was only the first step on a long road. But it was a step. That was the end of our story. Where are you listening from today? If you enjoyed this thought-provoking tale about prejudice, consequences, and the possibility of change, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more such interesting stories. Don't forget to share with your friends and family to help spread kindness and awareness. Your support helps us continue creating content that entertains while encouraging reflection on important social issues.